Now, obviously, there is pretty much only one place to start, right? The Desean Strickland era has officially begun. So, being touted as one of potentially the biggest upset in UFC Championship history. I mean, did anybody see that coming? If anybody genuinely predicted Sean Strickland was going to win and they have the receipts, I want to see them because there's not many of you out there. I like everyone else. I overlooked Sean Strickland. I'm pretty sure the UFC overlooked Sean Strickland. There's an argument that Adesanya overlooked Sean Strickland too, because if you think about the way this matchup actually went down and how it occurred, well, the fight wasn't announced until, about a month prior to the actual fight. The event sold out without a main event on the card, and they tried to do Alex Pereira versus Jiri Prochazka, but that fight wasn't ready. Then they tried to do DDP versus Adesanya. That fell through. And then the UFC was hesitant at first to even do the Sean Strickland match because of what a mismatch it was going to be. And, maybe he wasn't quite as deserving as, other fighters, DDP, for example. So, yeah, I mean, it's hard to try and comprehend what actually went down without taking anything away from Sean Strickland, because before I get into anything else, I want to give props to Sean Strickland. I think we should all highlight, how well Sean Strickland actually did in that fight. So bear in mind that this fight, beginning of September, Sean Strickland this was his fifth fight in just over a year. I think he lost to Alex Pereira in July of last year. And then he lost a split decision to Jared Cannonier on the back of that. Then he faced Nasruddin Imayov. I probably said that wrong, but he faced him on like 2 weeks' notice in a light heavyweight bout and then won a decision. Then he dispatched Magomedov, obviously in the second round in that impressive fight, which led to this title fight. But so he's been active. He was pretty much the only middleweight that was still available to fight. So they gave him the fight. And not only did he just beat Adesanya, he dispatched Adesanya and beat him for 5 rounds. 4 rounds if you're a Nazi and you want to correct me on that. But yeah, so he shocked the world. He's the new champ. The Desean Strickland era has officially begun. Now, in the first round, I think it's pretty common that most fighters have said, people that have sparred with Strickland have said, he's a bit of a puzzle to kind of work out in that first round. So that combined with the way Adesanya fights, and he kind of gets his reads in the first round. So first round was kind of exactly how I expected it to go up until that last 30 seconds where Strickland dropped him, landed 27 headshots in the last 30 seconds or something, 27 significant strikes, and almost finished him, honestly. I know the round finished with Izzy back on his feet, but he was definitely in a situation where he could have been finished, and I think it took Adesanya by surprise as well. But the way that he fought was not really any differently to how anyone probably thought he was going to fight. Strickland walked him down for 25 minutes. He used his jab, a 1-2 pretty much for the whole fight, and didn't wrestle. Even though he said prior to the fight and after the fight, the plan was to wrestle. He essentially beat him. He didn't even throw that many kicks. He blocked the leg kicks of Izzy. He kind of parried his hands away with the Philly box defense that he kind of uses, the iCarly defense. But Izzy just couldn't find him. I mean, I don't want to, again, like I said, I don't want to take things away from Strickland and say Izzy was having an off night, even though he did look off. Was it because he had an off night, or was it because Strickland fought in a way that made it so difficult for him he couldn't find his groove? And I think it's the latter, honestly, because the way Strickland had him in that position, he had him walking back for the full 25 minutes. He was so square forward that Izzy couldn't really get his kicks going against him. And the times where he did throw the kicks when the distance, the distance management was set up for that, he checked them and he avoided them. So Izzy was never really given the chance to find his groove, and Strickland just did such a good job defensively, and his awkwardness just worked in his favor. Now, Eugene Barrymore said after the fight that a couple of minor adjustments and he thinks Izzy wins. I don't argue with that. I think that's possibly true, but I don't think, even though Dana White said he thinks Izzy should have the next match, I don't agree with that, and I'll get to that next. But yeah, so Strickland pretty much fought perfectly. He obviously rocked him in the first, right? And I was kind of, wondering, did he ever recover from that? But Adesanya won the second round pretty convincingly as well, in my opinion. I mean, he won the round on all three judges' scorecards, and I think it was pretty easy to see that he won the round. And I was thinking, oh, he's recovered well, and now he's got his reads. He's going to start opening up? But Strickland might have just, gassed himself out a little bit in that last 30 seconds. He was looking for the finish. He could have just been a little bit slower in the second, because in the third, fourth, and fifth round, Strickland, didn't slow down and continued the onslaught that he did in the first round. So I'm almost certain that, I don't know. I'm not obviously not almost certain. Yeah, I mean, I was just as shocked as everyone else. I think it's more impressive that he won in the way that he did, rather than if he finished him in the first. Now, obviously, I would have still been just as surprised, but if you get caught in the first round, or you get caught in a fight, for example, Izzy versus Pereira in their first fight, if you get caught and you've been winning the fight, it happens in this sport. They're wearing 4-ounce gloves. Anything can happen. You can get caught. If he got caught like he did in the first round and got finished, you'd be kind of like, good job, Strickland, amazing, big underdog, etc., etc. It happens sometimes, but that's way more impressive that he was able to demolish him over 25 minutes, because it's not like it was a fluke victory. You know what I mean? He didn't just catch him; he dominated him, and the last 30 seconds of the fight were extremely telling to that, because Strickland was screaming at Adesanya to come on, to fight him, and Adesanya just looked beat. His face was kind of beaten up. Strickland didn't have a mark on him, and he's kind of breathing a little bit heavy. He didn't engage, even though he knew that he had 30 seconds to retain the title. He just looked absolutely depleted and defeated. Now, I don't think his schedule is an issue, because, like I said, Strickland fought 5 times, and all Strickland does is spar as well. So the wear and tear that he probably has is, one of the worst there probably is on the whole UFC roster. But yeah, the Desean Strickland era, man. I mean, I was saying to some of my friends that obviously Adesanya's the golden boy, right? He's the marketable guy. He's the guy that everybody knows. He's kind of the face of the company. Strickland is kind of like the anti-hero, but I think he won the crowd over with the moments he had on camera in the press conferences, on the UFC Embedded and stuff like that. And the YouTube views and stuff like that on Strickland, the views are insane. So maybe they can use this kind of, misfit persona, this anti-hero, to their advantage. But to the casual fans and to the people that don't really watch the sport, they're not going to see it like that. So I'm really curious to see how this plays out, because there's no doubt in my mind that Strickland will be true to himself and he won't change the way he is. Um, yeah, but that's my thoughts on the Strickland victory.